Well, Democrats now have something called the For the People Act, and I thought to find out what that really involves, House Resolution 1, I'd ask Hans von Spakovsky, Senior Legal Fellow at the Heritage Foundation and also former member of the Presidential Advisory Commission on Election Integrity and manager of the Election Law Reform Institute initiative. Hans, welcome back to the program. And what is this For the People Act? Oh, sorry about that. Hans, go ahead. What is the For the People Act? Is it really for the people?
No, it's for the progressive left and the Democratic Party. It is a complete takeover by the federal government of the administration of elections around the country, and it mandates all these provisions, the purpose of which is to weaken the security and integrity of the election process, to make it easier to cheat, to make it easier to manipulate election results, and frankly, to silence political opposition. And to just give you an example of what I mean, for example, look, there's a provision in it that basically outlaws all voter ID laws. So the states that have put in voter ID will no longer be able to enforce those laws. That's just one of many provisions. There are provisions in it that make it almost impossible to maintain the accuracy of voter registration rolls. States will no longer be able to use the U.S. Postal Service's national change of address system to try to find people who have moved out of state and registered in other states. Oh, and by the way, it puts all these restrictions on states being able to compare their voter registration list with other states to try to find people who have moved away and potentially are registered in more than one state. It's just one bad provision after another.
Well, tell me this, Hans. What's their? I mean, they must offer some justification saying, and I imagine some of it is, we don't want people disenfranchised. So if somebody moves from Iowa to Nebraska, we don't want them to be cut out of voting in Iowa just because they moved to Nebraska. Well, a lot of us do. I live in one state. I used to live in another state. I was registered to vote one time in each state, but only while I lived in that state. What do they offer up as a justification for why you shouldn't be cleaned off the voter rolls if you've moved out of state?
Well, they're claiming that all these rules suppress votes and throw eligible people off the rolls. That's just simply not true. But that's the justification they give for it. Look, that's just the election administration provisions of this bill. It also has all these new restrictions on federal campaigns, people running for Congress and the president, that will basically are intended to silence political opposition and to disclose the names of folks, for example, who are involved with nonprofit groups, nonprofit associations, because there's only one purpose to that. It's so that the names of those people will come out so they'll be intimidated and harassed. It is. Let me tell you what this bill is like. The disclosure requirements in it for nonprofit groups.
Yeah,
it's the modern version of what the state of Alabama tried doing in the late 50s, trying to force the NAACP to reveal its membership and its donors so that they could harass those folks. This is just the modern version of that.
And all of this, you expect, an HR is a House resolution, so it's not even truly an act, although if the resolution passes, then I assume they follow up with other legislation that actually bakes this into the federal code, right?
Well, no, it's actually a bill, and on the Senate side, Chuck Schumer has already introduced S1, so that's the Senate version of this bill. So, and they are, let me tell you, they're working hard. They want to get this passed as soon as possible, and there's no question if it is passed that it'll be signed into law by Joe Biden. And if it is, we can basically say goodbye to integrity in the election process.
Even though that's what they purport to be doing, but and is it constitutional for the federal government to interfere with the way that states administer their elections. I guess we gave up some of that with the Motor Voter Act, which was a federal law that pushed the states to allow people to register to vote, but at least it allowed it under the control of the states. In this case, it's the federal government telling every one of the 50 states how they can run their elections. Is that constitutional?
Well, there are portions of it. It just depends. Look, this is a massive bill. It's like 800 pages. And there are some provisions in it that, while they are unwise policy, may be constitutional. There are others that are clearly unconstitutional. I'll give you another example of that. Look, it's up to states to decide when a felon recovers his right to vote. You know, in 48 states, when you go to prison, you lose your right to vote. It's up to the states to decide when to do it. Some states do it as soon as they're out of prison. Other states, like Florida, say, well, no, first you have to pay restitution that you've been ordered to pay. Other states want a waiting period of a couple of years to make sure the felon is turned over a new leaf. This bill would force states to immediately restore the ability of felons to vote the moment they're out of prison. Well, the problem with that is that's clearly unconstitutional. Why? Because the 14th Amendment gives states directly the ability to make the decision on when and if felons get to vote, and yet here Congress is trying to override the 14th Amendment with a federal law. You can't do that.
And I assume that all of the blue states, even though they might say we want to maintain control of what we think is a qualified voter or not, that the blue states will sign on to this right away. Will the red states object to it? At least the 30 or so red states that say, no, we're not going to let the federal government tell us how to run our system. If they object to it loudly enough and their representatives follow suit, can we beat this thing?
I think they will, but here's the problem. When H.R. 1 was first introduced in 2019, it passed the House immediately. It was dead on arrival in the U.S. Senate. Unfortunately, as you know, Democrats are now taking over the U.S. Senate, so the ability to stop this bill, I think it'll pass the House on a party line vote.
Yep.
But it's going to get to the U.S. Senate, and whether it can be stopped or not depends on whether Republicans can successfully filibuster the bill. And as you know, the Democrats are being urged by their allies to exercise the nuclear option and get rid of the ability of the minority to filibuster legislation.
Even though, and I had a couple of people, Hans, and just double check me on this. They said, how is it the Democrats have a majority? I said, well, they have 48 plus the two independents that typically vote with them, caucus with the Democrats,
right,
and they've got the tiebreaker of Vice President Harris. That's the way it adds up.
That's right.
So they have a bare majority at that point, but only by using the tiebreaker on every important vote. There isn't a single Democrat, senator, or one of the two independents who will vote no on this and take it down below a majority?
I guess that's a possibility, but I don't really have any faith that any of the Democrats will be smart enough or listen to election officials in their own states who look, I'm sure there are a lot of Democratic election officials who don't like this bill either because they don't want the feds telling them how to run their elections, but I'm not sure Democratic senators will listen to them.
So at that point, it looks like it may actually pass. Hans, thanks so much. I know we're going to be talking to you a lot. At this point, I know we've asked you this before, but in the last 20 seconds, do you still see a trial for Donald Trump, private citizen, going forward from the U.S. Senate?
Yeah, it's pretty clear, I think, that the Democrats will go forward with it, even though I think it is unconstitutional to do that once he's a private citizen.
Well, he's a private citizen as of today. Hans von Spakovsky, who is at the Heritage Foundation. Hans, thank you very much.
Thanks for watching the Heritage Foundation's YouTube channel. With more than 500,000 members, we are the nation's largest conservative research and education institution. We believe the principles and ideas of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing. Please help us further our mission by subscribing to this channel and sharing our videos with your family and friends.